Welcome back to the Succeed with Dyslexia YouTube channel. In this series, we discuss news that goes on in the dyslexic community. So make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. In terms of latest news, we're going to discuss a few different segments. In the first segment, an entrepreneur talks the benefits of neurodiversity in business. In segment number 2, COVID-19 and learning loss. What does the pandemic mean for K-3 education? And segment number 3, compulsory dyslexia screening on the horizon for California. Speaking during Neurodiversity Celebration Week, business owner G. Sabini Roberts reached out to young neurodiverse people everywhere who might be worried about their career options in the future, and spoke about how neurodiversity in business can create a creative powerhouse. G, who is autistic themselves, notes that setting up your own business or being your own boss isn't something that's often presented as a legitimate career option to any young people, but these are environments that neurodiverse people can really excel in. They mention that there is a prevalence of neurodiverse business owners whose brains don't fit into the boxes that traditional career paths try to put us in. G is spreading the word by teaming up with a fellow neurodiverse entrepreneur, Sarah Kedge, to put together a free ebook that showcases the stories of neurodiverse entrepreneurs and business owners. They're also working with sound engineer and audio marketer Shiggy Pachter on an uplifting podcast and taking part in a TED Talk about how different ways of thinking and neurodiversity can be a real asset when it comes to business. Mid-year data from the DIBELS Early Reading Assessment indicates that grades K-3 are performing worse in the middle of the 2020-2021 school year than the 2019-2020 school year. This is evidence for the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on mainstream education, and something many students, educators, and parents are deeply concerned about. So, how prominent is this learning loss? DIBELS Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills is a series of short tests developed by the University of Oregon to assess K-8 literacy. Results from the first part of the 2020-2021 school year show that more students were slipping behind, and that the learning losses were much more pronounced than those typically expected over the summer break. Taken from a sample of 400,000 students in 1,400 schools, the results demonstrate a widespread and relatively large downturn in early literacy in the past year. The percentage of kindergartners on track in their early literacy decreased from 55% to 37%. The percentage of first graders on track in their learning decreased from 58% to 43%. There was a 68% increase in kindergartners who required intensive educational intervention. There was a 65% increase in first graders who required intensive educational intervention. The data also highlights that there's a demographic aspect to learning losses like these. At the midpoint of the last school year, 27% of African American kindergartners were described as falling well below benchmark and being in the lowest category for literacy skills. If we fast forward to the midpoint of this school year, DIBELS data shows that this has doubled. This means that there are twice as many African American children who are at risk of not learning to read. We can also observe a similar trend in the data relative to Hispanic children, where there have been 25% increase in kindergartners falling into the lowest category for literacy skills. It's a sobering thought. Although educators and students have responded with resilience and determination to the learning challenges that COVID-19 has brought with it, some of our youngest learners are struggling to achieve their full potential. The post-pandemic educational landscape looks set to spend a lot of time trying to counteract these learning losses so that everyone can go on to succeed. An overall dip in literacy levels is an outcome that could have a profound impact on generational achievement when it comes to further education and career prospects, and it's likely to have an impact on the already considerable stress levels of staff and students too. it's easy to feel that the advent of national vaccination programs and some lockdowns being slowly dismantled means that the effects of the pandemic on our daily lives might be receding. For some students, however, these effects are only in their nucleic form, and it remains to be seen what the long-term impact of this kind of learning environment might be. California Senator Anthony Portantino has recently introduced a piece of legislation that, if passed, would require all elementary schools in the jurisdiction to implement a compulsory dyslexia screening. Senate Bill 237 would, if passed, mandate the State Board of Education to provide dyslexia screening facilities to schools in time for the 2022-2023 school year. And an update to this bill, we're delighted to say that Senator Portantino's dyslexia legislation has passed. Senate Bill 237 was approved with bipartisan support on the 10th of March, 2021. This means that as of today, many more children all over California will be able to be screened for potential problems with early literacy skills and go on to receive all the considerations and the reading support that they need. Up next, we're going to focus on social media and see what recent news has been trending across various social media platforms. Starting on the threads of Facebook, we have a graphic that was created and shared by Dyslexia Inspired. Number 1, I can't spell very well. Number 2, I can't write my ideas with ease. Number 3, I only can read books of high interest. As I get to higher grades, I can't read easily across the curriculum. I'm very smart. Number 4, I fool people with my high vocabulary and large fund of knowledge. Number 5, I participate well in class verbally. And number 6, I fly under the radar. Please look closer, I'm struggling to learn. Jumping over to Twitter, we have Richard Branson, who said, "Made by Dyslexia, have a brilliant new book for dyslexic children called Extraordinary People. It explores some of the brilliant skills and superpowers people with dyslexia often have."
Well, if you're reading this book, you probably have dyslexia. And this means you think in a slightly different way to many other people. I simply wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't dyslexic. In the real world, dyslexia can be a huge advantage. I've always let my imagination run wild and have thought creatively about how I could make my big dreams happen. Imagination is one of humanity's greatest qualities. Without it, the world would be truly a very, very dull place. Think of all the fun things in your life. Someone somewhere had to come up with the idea for it. Many of the world's great entrepreneurs and inventors are dyslexic or were dyslexic. Thomas Edison illuminated our lives. Henry Ford made cars accessible to all. And Steve Jobs gave us pocket computers. So don't be afraid to stand out and be different. This brilliant book will help you understand the extraordinary strengths that come with dyslexia. And I hope it will inspire you to find your talents and to chase your dreams.
Moving over to Instagram, we have Zoe Jane Littlewood, who gives us 3 things that dyslexia is not. Number 1, a problem of intelligence. Kids with dyslexia are just as smart as their class peers. Number 2, a problem of vision. Some dyslexic people may need to use a visual aid. However, one of the core issues dyslexic people have are understanding how sounds in words are represented by letters. Number 3, a problem of laziness. Kids with dyslexia are trying and are not lazy. They just need a bit more time to complete a task and a little bit more help to make progress. This is the feature portion of this video. In this segment, we interview individuals who have been directly or indirectly affected by dyslexia. And I'm very happy to introduce Nick Posford, who's the CEO of the British Dyslexia Association. And he will be speaking to us and giving us more information about their upcoming conference. Today I am joined by Nick Posford, CEO of the British Dyslexia Association. I understand the BDA has a fantastic conference coming up in May. These conferences are now happening every 3 years, so this must be a special event. So Nick, it is so great to meet you. And my first question is, can you please tell me more about the conference and who it is aimed at?
Yeah, so it's our conference that we put on every 3 years. It's we have speakers that are experts in dyslexia and specific learning difficulties. We bring together hundreds of researchers and professionals from all over the globe. The event this time is virtual, which means not only do attendees not need to worry about flights or hotel accommodation, but also they can view all the presentations at the conference. They don't need to choose a particular track. The conference is going to be open for 2 weeks, so they can see all the presenters, all the discussions, the symposiums and everything else. So it's a really fantastic opportunity, and they can do it all from their own home as well, which is brilliant. So we're hoping to have the biggest ever audience as well.
So is there an underlying theme on what topics are covered, or what can all these attendees be expecting when they come?
So the key theme of the conference is research that advances our understanding of dyslexia and dyscalculia. And so that includes the neuroscience of dyslexia and how that applies to the learning environment, advances in knowledge around spelling, writing, working memory, executive function, all those related areas that are so crucial with dyslexia. Also advances in understanding dyscalculia and effective support strategies, the use and benefits and effectiveness of technology to support dyslexia or special educational needs in mainstream education, psychometric diagnostic assessments for dyslexia and dyscalculia, and really any research related to the strengths of dyslexia as well.
Wow, that's awesome. So this is pretty exciting for them, these attendees. You know, they're going to get a lot more. They're going to get exactly what, you know, they're coming to see and probably more. So you mentioned that you have some pretty awesome speakers. What's the lineup of these speakers, and is there anyone in particular that you're excited to listen to?
Yeah, so we've got several keynote speakers. One, for instance, is Professor Daniel Ansari, who's a professor and Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Developmental, Cognitive, Neuroscience and Learning in the Department of Psychology and the Faculty of Education at Western University in Canada. So he's a world-leading professor. He's got a keen interest connecting the science of learning with education. He's published 100 articles in peer-reviewed journals. He's a fellow of the Association for Psychological Science. We've also got Professor Adriana Bus, who is from the Netherlands and an honorary professor in Budapest and also a member of a university scientific advisory board in Norway. So she's conducted internationally renowned research in early literacy skills with a particular focus on experimental research. We've also got Professor Graham, who is the Warner Professor in the Division of Leadership and Innovation in Arizona State University Teachers College. For more than 40 years, he has studied how writing develops, how to teach it effectively, how it can be used to support reading and learning. So all three of those speakers are, you know, world leaders in the dyslexia sphere, and so I'm really interested to hear their talks as well.
That's awesome. 40 years. So he probably knows a thing or two what he's talking about at this point, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about this conference is, you know, there's an opportunity to hear from these experts who have such a huge amount of knowledge and research that they can talk about. And I think it gives an opportunity for people, whether they are dyslexia specialists themselves or whether they're relatively new to the world of dyslexia, it kind of gives them an opportunity to really dive deep into it.
And this kind of goes without saying, why is a conference like this so important? I mean, obviously the information is great, but what are you hoping the attendees, what are you hoping resonates with them, you know, when they leave this conference?
Yeah, so I think that for me, there's a couple of things. One is to hear experts and for those experts to be discussing the important topics, because as with anything, when you get people who are real experts and they dig into it, they will have differences of opinion. And I think the conference floor is a really useful environment for them to discuss these crucial topics, and also, for people to put their questions to them. And you won't get a better panel of experts to ask the burning questions you've always wanted to know the answers to. But I think also, a conference like this is so crucial because it brings these specialists and these expert researchers together to kind of advance our understanding of dyslexia and other learning differences. And I think it's really important for advancing the support available to people with dyslexia, advancing the teaching of children with dyslexia in school, to have these conferences to kind of help increase our knowledge and understanding.
That's incredible. I assume, people who go to this, they're taking their questions. They're going to leave different, maybe a different perspective and on dyslexia themselves or whatever it may be. I find that inspiring. I myself don't have dyslexia, but I can tell that these people, they're going to be changed. They're going to be a little bit different from by the time they attended and then after. So I think
I hope so. We always get really positive feedback about our international conference, and it's one that in normal times people will fly halfway around the globe to attend. So I think this is such a great opportunity because people can come to it even without, having to navigate, 8-hour flights and hotel bookings and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great opportunity.
Well, awesome. Well, now I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. From what I understand, you recently became the CEO of this long-standing, arguably the biggest association in accordance with dyslexia. But what are some of the priorities? What are you going to try and move forward? What are some of the things you're going to be focusing on moving forward?
We're looking at our strategy at the moment, and I think there's two really clear themes coming out of it. One is about removing the barriers that exist at the moment. So whether that's in our education system, whether that's in workplaces, whether it is in wider society, there's barriers that people with dyslexia face because there's a lack of understanding of what dyslexia is. There's a lack of understanding of how to support someone with dyslexia. So we're looking at how we can reduce those barriers and enable people with dyslexia to achieve their dreams and to do whatever they want to do. But I think equally, we're also really keen to change the perceptions around dyslexia and to make sure that people really understand how it's positive to think differently, and that thinking differently can bring huge advantages to businesses, to society, to people's lives. And so we want dyslexia to be seen in the positive light that it deserves to be.
I heard that recently it's only come to light that having dyslexia can, a lot of people look at that as a con, but there's starting to be, unraveled a lot of pros. In fact, maybe more pros than cons, if that's how you want to phrase it.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely. And I think, there's lots of well-known dyslexic celebrities or famous people. You've got the likes of Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, Lewis Hamilton, all these people that are well known for having amazing talents, and often they refer to their dyslexia as being part of what has made them successful. But I think also there's loads of great examples of entrepreneurs, of doctors, nurses, teachers, business owners, and so on, who also, very much have used their dyslexic way of thinking, their skills, their cognitive processes to kind of be innovative, to be creative, to be successful. So I think, we're starting to change that perception around dyslexia as being, I think historically it was often seen as difficulties with reading and writing, but really it's about thinking differently, and there's huge amounts of positivity that can come with that. And that's really where we need to focus in the future.
Obviously, there's a larger percentage of people on the planet that don't have it, statistically, as far as we know. But it's so interesting because that's how the educational, society has been brought up is not necessarily the right way, but in a specific way. And contrary to how people with dyslexia, so that's kind of what's resonated with me, is it's not the right way, but it's just the specific way that education has traditionally been brought up. So it's I think it's amazing that now it's coming to light that there's not just one way, but many ways. There's not a singular way.
Absolutely. And, when you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, dyslexia is often hereditary, and therefore there's something about what it is doing that is giving people an evolutionary advantage, as it were. So, dyslexia exists because it comes with positives that are beneficial for people at an individual level, and I think we can see at a societal level as well. So I think that positive perspective on dyslexia is really important.
But I think this is going to be a great source of for people and who are looking to learn more about dyslexia, and also about this conference coming up. Can you tell me a little bit more of how to attend and the cost?
Yeah, so people can book tickets on our website, which is bdadyslexia.org.uk, and they on the homepage there's a link to the conference, more details of the speakers, the topics, and so on, and then also to buy tickets. So a standard ticket is £225, and then there's reductions for students or professional members and so on. The conference is a great opportunity for the dyslexia community globally to kind of hear from the latest research into dyslexia and other differences. And I think it's an opportunity for us as a global dyslexic community to get together and kind of exchange our experiences and expertise as well. And there's a real good opportunity to kind of meet others from around the planet. And I think that's something that should be welcomed.
That's awesome. Well, this event is just around the corner, right? Next month. So I'm sure you guys are very, very busy on your end, making sure that that's situated and is where it needs to be. But thank you so much, Nick. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have this conversation with me. And I think this is going to be a great benefit to a lot of people.
Brilliant. No problem at all. And thanks very much, Jeff.
That brings us to the end of this video. If you found this informative, please consider liking this video, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. We'd like to thank Scanning Pens for sponsoring this episode, and as always, thanks so much for watching.